Hello and welcome to the special Project Spark E3 stream. I'm Mike Lasco from Team Dakota. I'm the community manager, and I'm with a host cast of characters who I'm going to let introduce themselves because for some reason I always manage to stumble over Henry Sturchy's name.
That's true. And it's 2414.
And it's 2414.
So over here, the arm on the side.
Oh wait.
Oh.
Whoa! That's scary.
Henry Sturchy, creative director, Team Dakota.
Rob Porsche, senior game designer, Team Dakota.
Steve Howard, GBA, combat designer, Team Dakota.
Can you say your last name again?
Howard, GBA. That's OYARIJIVBIE.
So that's why everybody calls you Steve-O.
Yeah, most people call me Steve-O.
I didn't know that. That now I completely understand. So guys, what we wanted, we had a lot of stuff at E3, a lot of great news, a lot of exciting news, a lot of maybe even somewhat little bit controversial news, I guess. We think it was all great. We love the buzz and everything else like that, and we apologize for Henry giving people a heart attack at the opening here. We're going to start to jump right in, and what we want to cover first is talk about Champions and Champions Quest, and then as we go along, we'll try to get to your questions about science fiction, multiplayer, and Conker, or really anything else you have to try to do that, and we'll see what we can do. I think Henry can't stay too long, so I want to hit him with the hardball questions, and we'll go from there. So we're going to start off and say, let's put Rob on the spot. Rob, what the heck are champions? Why are they important, and why should I care?
So champions are characters that have built-in play experiences. They are all unique with different classes, and they have a set of abilities that you could level up through Champion Quest, through Crossroads, and through UGC.
So they can level. So basically, they're characters. They're like like a WoW character, or
yeah, basically.
Yeah. Basically, their progression lives throughout all the game modes.
Mm-hmm.
And if for creators, they can create games based on these characters, and they have built-in mechanics and gameplay already there. And people who play UGC or Champions Quest, they can bring those characters throughout, so you can power them up in Crossroads, and then bring them into Champions Quest, and they'll be the current level with their abilities.
Okay.
And they come with unique weapons, unique clothing, and their weapons sort of evolve as you level them up. So there's a bunch of fun stuff for you to unlock. They have their own sort of personalities and backstories, and they have their own voice actor. And Steve can maybe jump into some of the more cool unlockables.
Do we know who those voice actors are? Oh, I'm sure we know who they are. Can we say who they are?
I think you've heard them before.
I think we can. I haven't heard any emails that said we couldn't. So
well, and that's the only way we ever get anything done here is we say, hey, anybody object if we do this? Oh, we did it. And
so Mike's got the list, and we're going to probably put up a blog later on today. So maybe we'll just have the list in the blog.
Well, to go over some of the guys we have on screen right now, the play styles of each of these characters are quite different. So right here we have Karlsnor, which is a goblin. He's more of a rushdown kind of character. And our Scarlet, she's more of a keep-away character. And Avalon in the middle, she's more of a hybrid between the two.
So, Steven, tell us a little bit about, the Champions have been out for a while, and people see what's out there today. Mm-hmm. But that's not been, our end vision.
Yeah, what's the difference here?
And I think that's something we just announced, that we have co-op, both same screen and online over Xbox Live. So just talking about that, Champions are always designed sort of from the beginning with these thoughts about leveling and cooperative interaction between them, and that's some of the stuff that makes the gameplay experiences special, is that they play very different, but they also complement each other.
Right. So yeah, Karlsnor starts off, his backstory is that he's sort of like a goblin that he doesn't want to be that much violent anymore. So he starts off unable to control his rage, but as he progresses throughout the game, he's able to trigger his rage at will. So he kind of evolves past where the other goblins are.
Right. So for a lot of creators that have been asking about, is there a lore, is there a story behind Spark? And for a game where you can essentially make anything you can imagine, why do we have some of these stories? So there's a lot of reasons for it. First of all, the art style, the look, the feel, the whole tone of the world sort of starts from this lore. And people can change it and people can alter it, but if they do want some inspiration, they do want some seed of this inspiration, they can sort of use this. The other thing is exactly what Steve was saying, is we sort of came up with this personality for Carl, and that helped define his gameplay, and then his gameplay kind of went back to define his personality. So he's got this great story where he was sort of training to be a goblin fighter, and his clan leader sort of challenges him one day, and he ends up just completely going berserk, and he realizes the power and the impact of what his behavior is and what can happen when he goes and rages out. And that sort of goes right into the gameplay, right into the story, right into the look. You can even see sort of with his helmet and his mask and things like that on his face. These are all things that we build in with the story, and then we let people alter it, change it, piggyback off of it, or in some cases, just make whatever they want and ignore it.
So these guys are constantly growing. I think the Karlsnor that's out right now, he doesn't have this cool sword that he has here, and the shells changed, and he's got these bloodstones that are sort of like embedded into his armor, and things like that. So as they grow throughout the game and get EXP, they're going to be able to have new abilities, things you haven't seen before.
Right. So with everything we do, we try to balance out a great amount of stuff for creators and a great amount of stuff for players. And I think the benefits for the players are obvious around, it's a great sort of, just kind of get started, pick up and play character that already has some built-in skill, it has some gameplay. But I think for the creators, they can piggyback off of these mechanics. So if they're more about making worlds and telling stories, they've got mechanics that are already there to start with. If they're looking for unlocks and really awesome looking characters, and all of this other gear and weapons and stuff, the Champions have that value built in as well. So there's a lot of different things here for creators and players. And as we show Champions Quest, one thing to keep in mind is this was all made with the tools, so people can remix this, and people can go ahead and see how we made things as well.
Yeah, so unlocking stuff for a creator, basically when you level up your Karlsnor, you'll be able to give the shells to other goblins, so you can make your own types of enemies. And you've seen some of the Crossroads enemies, if you've jumped in there and looked in their brains and stuff like that, you see that we're using the same tech. Everything that we've made, you can make too, so feel free.
Yeah, so people are asking about things like fonts. There are some font improvements coming. We don't necessarily have a different character type font, but Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, we have bold and italics now?
Correct.
So there are some cool font polish that is coming.
We're just always breaking the barrier. That's what Team Dakota is all about.
One font at a time. Underline is coming soon. Maybe. No, probably not. So I don't know. Do you want to get started and fire away?
Yeah, I've already picked Karlsnor, so
okay. I'll choose.
We'll wait on Rob.
So what you're seeing here is our E3 demo, and as with everything with Project Spark, it's a work in progress. So you'll see here are our two champions. This starts a little bit into our first episode. Our two champions enter Verdia Village, and the idea here is that they've appeared for the annual Codian Festival. But this year, this is a bit of a different Codian Festival because something happens.
Changes.
Something surprising and good?
For those of you who recognize it from the trailer, you'll recognize the voice of the Creation Well is now Jim Cummings.
Everybody's having a good time, and then goblins show up and wreck the party.
That's right.
Happens to me every weekend.
And if you don't recognize Jim Cummings, I suggest you check out Jim Cummings Reads Darth Vader.
So we're both playing cooperative here with our hybrid and our rushdown kind of character. I'm able to adjust the camera a little bit and run around and slash people up.
So on the same screen, it sort of has this built-in tether system between the two characters. It'll allow some zoom in and zoom out as the characters get closer and further apart, but more importantly, it'll sort of keep them together. And it's a great pick-up and play experience. I've had a lot of great, we've had a lot of great play sessions where it's just being able to play co-op, kids and parents, and Rob, and he always hogs all the crystals just like my kids do. So it's a fun experience to play together.
And what we're seeing there is Spark can actually interact with different things in the playfield. So there, Spark was grabbing fireworks and locking onto the enemies and having them have the fireworks fly into the bad guys.
Right, so just with everything else, Champions Quest is really there to, no game sound, so they can't hear Jim coming. Champions Quest is really there to embody sort of the play experience, but it's also there to give people these constructs and these concepts around Spark and creation and even coding. So as you're playing the game, you'll actually start to learn some of the code angles, and you'll see that coming soon. But right here, here's a sample of a work-in-progress cinematic.
Hey, wait, I can hear sound.
So Mike's going to narrate. So what you'll see here is Spark is moving around, and the characters are able to press the right bumper, and that allows you to interact with different things in the world. So here, Spark is apparently detonating left jabs.
What? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. There's
and a couple of straight rights from Spark.
Hey, wait, no, dude, see, this is why I get the big bucks. We just have great solutions to everything.
So,
can you guys hear it now?
to sort of summarize the full package of what Project Spark is going to be offering in the fall, you will have a full play and create experience. A super robust editor allows you to sculpt the world, put in your own props, change the behavior on everything, a huge variety of assemblies, default characters. It'll also include a tutorial that you guys have seen that'll be slightly evolved and improved. Crossroads, which is a great sort of bridge between playing and creating. Champions Quest will be available, which will allow players just to jump in and start to see the concepts of Project Spark and learn about creating and changing the game as they play it. And then, of course, we'll have a series of champions available, and we will have online multiplayer. And Galaxies will also be available as a content pack.
There's also new enemies in this as well, and there'll be new enemies in Crossroads, I believe, too.
So,
is this level linking?
Are we going from one level to another?
Is that happening?
I think that's happening.
What happened to that? I thought we went in the time machine, went back, erased everybody that had any memory of level linking, and we're never going to mention that again.
What a time to be alive.
Well,
wow.
That's true. That's true.
That is true.
Yeah. So Champions Quest is 1 or 2 player, and when you make your own multiplayer experiences, you'll be able to play with 4 players simultaneously, create with 4 players simultaneously, and you'll be able to make games with 4 players.
Our heroes made a startling discovery.
So yeah, so you will be able. So I will be able to go. Well, not me, but if I was a skilled community member, I could go, or
That's a stretch.
or I was any type of community member, right? I could go and create a level that would allow up to 4 players multiplayer to play at once, like via Xbox Live. But I could also make 2 players like in this type of thing, like same screen, shared.
Correct. Yep.
And no split screen. I know that's something we've talked about. That
no, and if you wanted to work on your own sort of camera systems, or you wanted to do like static cameras, you could support 4 players as well.
So really, you could have 4 players on.
I'm pretty sure they work on the other controller.
On local?
Oh no, local's only 2.
Local's only 2.
But yeah, for online you can have 4 players. So
online you can have 4. Local you can have 2. If you make it online, everybody can have their own camera view. So it could just be
that's what I meant. Yes, correct.
Yeah, everybody could have their
Somebody
own view.
can be in a first-person shooter.
Right.
Right. So 2-player couch co-op is the max. But if you want to have like somebody in a first-person camera and a third person, you can totally do that online.
So couch co-op would be 2 people on the same screen controlling their characters, whatever. Or something like, what if you made hey, could I make a tank game where we're in the same thing, but I'm driving and Steve-O's firing?
Exactly. And like Abra is probably saying right now too, is you could have somebody on the left stick, somebody on the right stick, and you could do 4 players probably on the same screen.
Abra's always about sort of finding the... Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways that you
Proving
can
us wrong. That's what Abra does.
Bend the convention.
So one of the things we haven't talked about much is are the goblins and why they look different. So if you noticed at the beginning of the episode, it was called Champions Quest Voidstorm, and the Void are the enemies of this episode. They're the anti-creation. They're the virus that's attacking this world, and Spark comes down to this world to try to save it. And you can see the texture on the ground is all void corrupted, and this observatory is corrupted. And your goal is to find the code tiles to repair and restore the functionality to the world.
Right. So this is a big part where the story sort of ties into the creation of the game as well, and it also allows people who are just looking for a pick up and play experience to actually start seeing some of the coding as well. So here you see you've collected one of the tiles. I believe the first one you get was move, or was it up? Object up, and then you have sort of the short description. Thank you, Keith. To the tile. And then what you'll see is as you find these little code glyphs around the world and do fun things to unlock them and collect them, is that you're able to solve the puzzles with them. And you can use some of your code knowledge to do that, or if you're just new to Project Spark, you can start to learn as you play. So there will be a void paint theme biome that you'd be able to create with, but we haven't announced any other details on that right now as well.
So the the Void Goblins here are broken up into 2 factions as well. So there's like the mutated ones, which are these darker goblins. They've basically been exposed to the Void for so long that they've had new abilities, such as like going berserk or diving in at you. The corrupted ones have not that much exposure to the void, so they just have their attachments, and attachments will be available to everybody else, so you can voidify your goblins as well.
So one of the things that I'll add, for the longest time, as we always talk about, I usually tell Henry and the rest of the team, like, don't bother telling me about anything that's more than 3 weeks away, because I can't do anything about it, and I don't even want to know. It's too busy. So with Champions, we've always talked about it, and we've talked about it with you guys, and a lot of the community were like,
oh, level up.
And I was also, and Henry will vouch for this, I was the type of guy, I'm like, I don't see what you can do that would make this so great. So I never really got to see it or look at it until, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the first time I saw Rob demo it. And I was really blown away because this is just not what I envisioned. And then I saw it, and to me, it almost felt like this was a completely different game, right? Like I was like, so this is Project Spark, but just the amount of polish, it just really feels different from the stuff that we saw because, well, these are professional game designers using the tools to do stuff that our community has done an awesome job with, but with a little more vision and maybe a little more experience and sort of that bigger team that could do it. And to me, it really felt really kind of cool and polished, and made me go, wow, I kind of want to check this out, So I'm hoping that a lot of our folks and even our core community folks will take a look at it, even our core creators, and give it a shot and see what it does, see how they feel it applies to the stuff that they like in Project Spark, and ideally see if we can win it over. And I think what was the bet, Henry? We were trying the odds on whether that Paradox and Moose we could get him on board to say, wow, Champions is actually cool, because he's been one of the big doubters. I just can't imagine how that could actually be really, really awesome. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we need to have more work to do, and you guys can let us know. But it's definitely something pretty cool. So people want to know, can you see the brains on the Champions?
So the Champions are pretty much locked in the way they currently are. We've talked about some plans to potentially have some modular assemblies that allow you to sort of plug and play their skills in your creations. Right. But that's something that's just going to take some time, and we're going to have to see whether or not we can get that in or not. We can't commit to that right now.
So can I troll?
But the goal would be for you to be able to sort of get those plug and play assemblies.
So can I troll? I know it's been a tough week.
I would be surprised if you didn't.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that nobody's going to cry. So what you're telling me is that the community can't lock their creations and do it, but Team Dakota can lock theirs so nobody can look at it. How's that fit the philosophy?
Well, it's an interesting perspective.
Oh, you never thought of this before?
So, ideally, the core around the Champions and their evolution and how they level is built into those brains. So that's sort of the stuff and the reason why we couldn't do that. Like we love to reveal how we made the brains if it didn't compromise that XP system and that experience. And that's sort of one of the things we're continuing to try and solve. And the best way we've come up with that so far is to potentially provide these assemblies that are modular plug-and-play type of stuff.
Okay, so how about this?
But in general, I will say, and Brad Reeb had lots of discussions at a higher decibel level than he normally speaks around locking something out for the creators. And in general, it's not something we prefer to do.
So Reeb was against it? He was on the creator side?
Reeb is always on the creator side. For sure.
That's it. I don't know that they know that.
I think in general, the whole team is always on the creator side.
Yeah.
But Reeb is such the champion of the creaters, right?
Absolutely.
Like he is so passionate, and believe me, guys, and those of you guys that met him at like PAX East, a lot of our community folks did. I think they know he is such a fan.
Yep. So it is definitely a priority, and that is definitely something we want to do. Is be able to get the brain sort of visible.
So if the community, just to kind of let them know, because we always try to take their feedback, if they come up and say, hey, these are the things we'd like to learn from those brains, right? Like, and they acknowledge, yeah, we don't want to, ruin the surprise.
Yep.
Can you guys come up with, these are the things we want to get? Is that something we can look at and figure out whether it's the assembly or we just explain like a blank version and like kind of explain to them how those things were done?
Yeah, we're definitely open to that, and potentially in a controlled situation like Twitch or something, Steve-O or maybe Claude can open up the brains and show how we made some of that stuff. We're definitely not trying to keep the brains secret by any means. The problem is once you give access to the XP tiles.
Right.
So that's one of the big things. Rob has actually the edit mode open here.
Yep.
So you can see we're big fans of logic cubes. But one of the things I wanted is, can you go ahead and show how do you make a multiplayer game?
So will the average user be able to edit the field, or is this all locked down?
This is all open. Yeah. So people can go in the Champions Quest.
So they can remix Champions Quest.
Go ahead and remix it. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So go ahead and go to the character real quick, Rob, and show them the properties menu. So this is how quick and easy it is to make a multiplayer game in Project Spark now.
Well, you're putting me on the spot.
Right bumper A. Right bumper A.
Yeah.
There's the characters.
Is it more complicated because you have a champion? Just drop in another character if you want.
Okay.
So we're going off script here, not that we had a script.
But we're going off script.
I had a script once and Mike knocked it out of my hand.
Oh man.
Don't do that. It's just crazy talk, you know.
Sure.
But yeah,
Henry, what? My whole philosophy is always keep the bar low, so we can always exceed it.
That
You
is
want to
true.
start up here once, and then
That
we're
is true.
doomed the rest of the time.
So here's Rob just putting in a kind of a quick brain from the gallery. But if you want to go ahead and you want to make your character multiplayer, you can just show them the properties. This is the easiest way to do it, is you put your character in, and then you go ahead and you go to brain, and now you have player slots. So this is it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just go ahead and you assign your controllers, and then as you get a little bit more complicated or want to do some other stuff, you can go ahead and assign some HUD work and things like that. But for the most part, let's say you might go into a cottontail. I don't know who would do something like this. Not that we have. Okay, we have. And you clone the rabbit that was made, and you just assign them to controller 2, and you have co-op a cottontail.
Just that simple.
It's just that quick and easy too, so it's pretty cool. So we're not announcing any more details on Conker right now. Conker was definitely a tease of things to come at E3, and Sachs had a pretty good interview talking a little bit about Conker on the IGN live stream, so if you guys want to check that out. But you know, the idea is just big fans of Conker, and you know, we talk with Rare and Chris,
big fans
and a lot of
Conker and Rare, right?
Yeah,
Because there's
and
so
Rare as
many
well.
great Rare things that we just think
Yep.
are awesome.
And the idea is that, you know, the people who made Conker a classic can continue his legacy, and we want to hand Conker over to the fans to make their own creations and games.
Right, and it's just one of those things that we, you know, hey,
Yep.
we want to play Conker and Project Spark, right?
Yep.
We want to do the stuff that we can. So it's
Exactly.
you know, looking at that, it's really kind of one of those things that we want to do that, and maybe, I don't know, like if this works, right? Can you see, Henry, like, is it conceivable that other types of things like that could make their way in Project Spark?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea essentially was to allow the biggest imagination, creativity, and to turn Project Spark into a platform for that creativity. So, you know, if there's opportunities like that fit and make sense, this could be the beginning of more things.
Right.
I was banned from playing Conker as a kid. I can't wait to do some things.
Rob actually tested Conker.
Yes.
Did
Showing my age. Yeah, it was.
Seriously?
When we were at Nintendo.
It was the first.
Wow.
It was
We
the
were at
first game I
Nintendo.
tested. Yep.
And I remember because every time I'd want to go over and talk to him, I'd have to go to the secret locked up room where no one was allowed to go in and see Conker being playtested.
That's true.
Really?
Yeah.
They just had to lock it down. So, but I think
I've got some ideas.
Abra brings up, you know, a good question. What does that mean about, you know, Project Spark's policy? I think, you know, you look at it, and what we have now is we kind of have a couple different ways. In Project Spark, if you play, we have what we call on, I think the term in the game is a curated feed.
Yep.
And the way that works is anything that ends up in that feed is played by those of us on Team Dakota to ensure that it's safe for kids. And I think technically it's ESRB 10, you know.
COPA compliant.
You know, yeah, and it's COPA compliant, and we make sure that it's all there. So anybody that wants to turn on the curated feed and play the game, we'll let the kids play the game. They're completely safe, and they're only going to see stuff that we handpick and let being there. Now, beyond that, we then have stuff that is sort of the normal things that we do. And if somebody reports stuff, and sometimes we'll spot check. If we see stuff there and we think it's bad, we'll take it out. If we don't, we'll just leave it in and do that. So now, come with Conker, and we know there's a certain type there. But fundamentally, we're about pushing the boundaries. And you know, Team Dakota's always been about that, trying to do the things people say we can't. Obviously, Conker's about pushing the boundaries. I think all the fans really want to do stuff. I think Steve-O wants to relive his childhood and all the stuff he wanted to play and do.
Rob wants to connect, record, and voice the Pooh Monster.
Oh,
Right.
man.
I do actually.
And I think, you know, it's one of those things that we don't want to put limitations. Project Spark is about removing those. So is there ways that we might need to work around that? Will there be a special feed or that? I don't know. I don't know. You know, we know we can solve it. We don't know exactly the right details. But the goal here is that we want to put this into the creators' control to make what they want, and we never want to inhibit that creativity in whatever direction it goes. So that's where we look at it. We don't see that Conker coming in is really going to cause us much of an issue at all. But then again, you know, that's what the community is there for, to show us the things like, well, here's where the issues are, right?
Yeah, I want my Conker to be running around chainsawing people. I can't wait.
Yeah, see, I think that's just awesome. Way to have games automatically show up in the curated feed. Well, no, the whole idea is that we will, you know, and we talked about maybe setting up a way to have people submit them. So, hey, I'd like to have it be considered for the curated feed, but just to be clear, anything that ends up in the curated feed is something that hands-on, somebody from Team Dakota plays, looks at, and then puts it on. It's not anything that automatic comes in. If something's in there and somebody updates it, it will drop out and needs to be reviewed again. So we keep it really safe because a lot of folks in the team have kids and they really want to make sure that it's safe, and that's really
I think
a real
a quick
important thing for us.
summary is Project Spark will remain safe for people that want it to be, for kids, for everybody to be able to feel very confident and very comfortable with that. But in the same vein, we know exactly what Conker's all about. And we know exactly the potential for where Conker, the character and the personality, has come in, and we want to make sure that we are very authentic to Conker as well, and we allow that flexibility.
Right.
So we'll announce more details, probably alongside when we announce more details with Conker.
Right.
And Rob gets that Connect recording.
I think I still know the song.
I'm sure you do. I'm pretty sure I remember it too.
But yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things that we talked about a little bit for creators, and you know, with different outfits and different, like, tell me what are the things that leveling up a champion unlocks that a creator could use in something completely unrelated, just their own creative stuff they want to make? What are the things that leveling up champion would unlock for them?
All right, so with Avalon right now, we're both playing as Avalon and Carl. Well, leveling her up to a certain level, she gets a plant turret. You can now use that plant turret and its seeds in any different way that you'd want. You can make plant turret enemies, you can make your own little plant versus zombies or plants versus goblin kind of game. You can throw down seed bombs or have the seeds be like little things that float around your level and do different things like that. And every champion has its beginner weapon, which is completely unique from all the other weapons, and its end epic weapon. So Carl here, he starts off with just a slightly different goblin cleaver, and he ends up having this like cleaver that turns into like it looks like a monstrous face on it, because he's a berserker kind of guy, and you can change that up and have just cleavers running around or just throwing your cleavers, these cool blood cleavers at people and stuff like that. So.
There's also visual effects that'll unlock and sound effects.
Yeah, so you get different sounds. Each character has a couple of different armor unlocks. They go from level 1 armor to level 3 armor, so you can throw that on to different people as well. So that's different hair, that's different headpieces. We have Scarlet going from looking like a slightly different ranger to this epic crystal ranger. She's all about throwing down her caltrops, which are crystallized, and she gets a better arrow, and you can actually get her quiver as well. So you can throw a quiver on the back of people if you want to do that.
Her decoy is hilarious.
Oh yeah, she has a decoy. It like waves and moves around, and at later levels it blows up. So it's really cool to play with. And
one of the things, and maybe we can do this in a future stream, that I watched when I first saw or maybe it was like the second time I saw Champions, was Steve-O actually went in and he showed sort of the different enemies, right? And to me, as somebody who's kind of has a little bit of an MMO background, right, in that sort of area, he was showing, hey, this is the kind of the different or enemies and bosses and things, and the different mechanics that they used. And then as he explained it, just on kind of a typical open sort of world, hex-based world, terrain, you could see how that was sort of setting up different types of gameplay and different types of things like that. And then, of course, immediately I started thinking, well, hey, then you could add a healer to do this and that. And in a lot of ways, I was sort of like, wow, this is kind of really cool tools to really let you expand and make your own games by taking maybe these enemies and these other things that are there. And so I think it really kind of opens the door in a lot of different ways to look at that. And if you know, and if you guys are interested, maybe on another stream we can do that and kind of show some of those things and let you guys start thinking about the mechanics, ways you could make it in your own games, or ways you would play the champions.
I think a good thing to do here is to narrate a little bit of what's going on.
Okay.
So at this point, at the end of one of the first level, the goblin leader he took the Codian runestone, which is an artifact that the people were worshiping at the Codian festival, and
now
you're trying to retrieve it.
Yeah, we're chasing them down now. And we realized that this observatory has been corrupted, and Spark has the ability to jump inside of things and see the code and fix it for us. So we see that there's missing code pieces here that we'll need to go and collect, and then we get the code and power back to life, this observatory back to life. Piggybacking off the enemies a little bit more, there's actually going to be about 8 to 10 different type of enemies in here. There's little fodder guys that run around, they kind of get into your face. They're the smaller guys here. Then we have our basic units, which are goblins you're probably familiar with if you've worked with the default goblin from the bar. But then we also have these big mutated guys, which are berserkers. And I'd love to expand and talk about more of the enemies in another stream and whatnot. But real quick with these berserker guys, once they get low, they kind of taunt at you and turn red. And they get a attack speed boost. They also become resistant to stagger and other things like that. So the enemies play off of the champions play off of the enemies, and you can use your champion for different type of games. You can make a zombie survival game. You can make 2D platforms with your champions, because each champion has like a design skeleton of what they're going to have. Every champion has like a basic attack. Every champion has like a special ability attack.
Well, I think like we do understate some of that enemy design. Like you've done an amazing. Steve has been really focused on a lot of the enemy design stuff. Like just gives people some of the philosophy behind there are anti-range enemies, there's anti-melee enemies, and these new enemies that are coming along with this sort of play into those archetypes and really enhance the in and out of like that gameplay.
Right. I think a lot of time we were seeing people play Scarlet and just circle strafing around, and when I joined the team I wanted to like help out and see what we could do there. So we initially started off making enemies a little faster, a little harder to deal with if you were Scarlet or Carl, and it just sort of expanded into these different roles that really challenged the player on what they could do and forced them to think about things a little differently as their champion.
Right, so I think we've got a really strong, you can see here we've got a super accessible layer of creation here. So the player just hits the right bumper, and Steve actually set up these little plant monsters that come to life. So you can start to create just with some very simple game mechanics as you play. And then you've got a really twitch-driven, reactive, high-action combat. I mean, when you've got two players going and leveled up champions, and you've got some setups, and you had to tone this stuff down because Sapienza was getting pwned left and right.
Oh, and on the
sometimes center, like, I mean, we knocked the freckles off of him in some of these fights. And you know, you've got this great sort of action stuff going on, and then you've got this amazing code layer, and you've got these puzzles. So, you know, what you see here, we've got some question marks in there. We sort of show you which of the tiles you need. We're going to have some optional puzzles, some side quests, some side areas, some champion-specific areas, and you can see that these puzzles can start getting really complicated and can be really complex as we start bringing these in. Potentially multi-line puzzles, and just lots of other stuff, and big potential for people to really challenge themselves. You know, we talk about what type of game Project Spark is, and it's funny because really sort of the best summary is puzzles.
Right.
All right, Project Spark is a puzzle, and it's whether you're creating something from scratch on your own, and you're challenging yourself, to do more and more, and turn that double jump into a super triple jump that attacks, or you're solving these code puzzles in Creation Quest, or you're figuring out some of the side quests and the little mini games and puzzles in Crossroads. Like, Project Spark at its heart is an action puzzle game.
I think when you pull down somebody else's level, you're trying to figure out what they did to make their level seem awesome. If you're learning from enemy brains or you're learning things like that, it's still like a puzzle aspect to it, trying to figure out what's going on here and how can I make that better, or how can I do that myself.
Yep. And I think, you know, a big thing is if we think about sort of just the big picture for Project Spark, you know, one of the things that people, you know, always say, what do you feel is, you know, a success for Project Spark, and what are some of the key things you want to see with Project Spark in years? And I think, you know, we're super overwhelmed. We've announced some really fun stats in some of our videos. We have something like 700 new levels a day, like 1.5, terabytes of data every day, or something crazy like that. and we have 1 million creators. But we also want to make sure that the creators put up the levels, and it's a great platform for them to get players. So players and creators going together is the harmony of Project Spark, and that's why everything we do and everything we add is very focused on blurring that line between playing and creating. So when we decided to add a very pick up and play mode, we knew it still at its heart had to be about creation. It still had to be getting people ready for creation. And one of the biggest moments that you have in Project Spark is when you jump into the community and you see something amazing that the community made, and you have that context of, holy crap, they made this with this tool.
Right.
And that's also what Champions Quest is exposing, is there is this tool, and this is what people are doing, and it gives people that knowledge. So when they see those levels, they get the whole picture. So Rob didn't, or Rob wouldn't fail. He refused to fail this puzzle. We'll have to get Sapienza to come down and fail the puzzle.
So, Henry, here's my question, and I've asked this before, so Henry knows. He doesn't know it's coming, but I think he knows the answer. So I look at that, right? I look at that kind of code tile thing, and I think that's awesome, right? That's a great way to get people introduced, get them, awesome, and I see why you guys did it. And then I look at the stuff like Mescad and some of these other guys have done, and I imagine, what would somebody like Mescad do with that type of tool in his hands for tutorials and the other things?
Right.
Have we given any thought to ways that we can make some of that functionality or assemblies available to them?
We have. I mean, these are things that are not short-term type of problems, but we ultimately actually wanted to build a tool and some kind of a parser and actually let people make their own tutorials and let the community build their own tutorials. So that's something that I don't know if it's going to be soon or not, but was absolutely something we wanted to do in tutorials, and it's still sort of on our roadmap and something to be thinking about. But I think Champions Quest job, sort of first and foremost, is just to expose these constructs, right? Think about what a big shift it was the very first time you saw Project Spark and you didn't know what to think about it. Now we have more and more and more people coming in, and we sort of have to get them to that, hey, this isn't about that run from left to right experience. This is actually the first time you can say in history of, hold on, stop, I want to change what I just played and I can do it. And we're just trying to kind of get that out through Champions Quest. This is episode 1, so things are going to evolve. There'll be more skills, more puzzles getting harder, more enemies to test you and
mini
things like that. Mini bosses.
Yeah.
Steve-O's cooking up a really cool mini boss right now. So those things are going to evolve. But at the end of the day, we'd love for things like Mescad to have his own tool to make tutorials. Obviously, he's done a fantastic job just with videos. I mean, anytime I search hashtag Project Spark, like, I can't even count how many people he's helped to thank him. But even if he was able to contribute something in-game, flag those levels in the community and have a special tutorial feed, we totally love that. We built a starter kit feed. We would love to take the tutorials to that part. And we'd love to hand these puzzles over, too. Yeah. Right now, they're a little dicey. They're a little Band-Aid and magic. Rob's working on trying to get a more template version. Some duct tape.
Lots of hope.
Lots of hope. But, at the end of the day, we think that the community being empowered to do that type of stuff is the future of Spark.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, if you look at E3 all up, right, we announced the big things we announced. I think we addressed some of the things that you guys have been bringing up for a long time that we couldn't really talk about. But one of the biggest things people said, like, well, hey, is this the only art style? Is it always just fantasy game? And we couldn't say, yes, sci-fi is coming, although I think we really hinted at it with a lot of different ways, and you guys picked up on it. But that was sort of the answer to that, is like, no, this is, yes, here's sci-fi, and hey, imagine whatever else can come. Like, whatever you guys want, we can do, right? So that kind of addresses that aspect.
I think if you look at E3 holistically, it was a very strategic series of messages that showed what Project Spark would ultimately become. And this is something that's really important. Again, a player without a creator doesn't work. A creator without a player doesn't work.
Right.
So we were very conscientious of making sure we didn't show Champions Quest until the pieces of the puzzles made sense. We had something that people could see and play and understand. The whole fantasy realms theme, that's something that we hung on to a little longer than we wanted to in beta because we ended up having a lot of other stuff to do. But from day one, it was always about being able to provide more themes, more styles, and go beyond fantasy for Project Spark. And then I think, the sort of last big messages are around multiplayer. Project Spark, always at its heart, was a social game. So we wanted to make sure that whether you're just hanging out with friends, whether you're remixing stuff that's already out there, whether you're just playing multiplayer games, or whether you're creating your own together, like the Postal Service, you know, putting together an epic album through the mail, multiplayer was very key to that. And then, I don't want to touch on it too much, but when you think about Conker, that's when you start to think, well, you know, I said in the blog before, this was sort of our time to give you guys the unexpected. And I think if you really thought about Project Spark, I might have been sort of slyly lying there, because that sort of is expected, is to take this to the next level and to empower fans to make games they loved, games that we can all grow up on from here and stuff like that. And I think when you think about all of those pieces at E3 together, it's a lot of messages. It's a lot to absorb.
A lot to digest,
but it is the holistic, full reality of Project Spark. And I think the last part of it is the timing. To say that we're coming out in fall, I think was important for a couple of reasons. And the first one is we absolutely acknowledge there's some still road to go in beta. There's bugs to be fixed. There's performance to improve. There's stability around saving. There's UI stuff, messaging, and things like that. So we feel like fall with all these components is our vision for Project Spark.
Right. No, I think that's
Mike's almost speechless.
No. I think it's one of those things that I think now, if you think about it and you let it go in, now you can kind of see the big story. And one of the ways that me and Henry and Michael Wolf were kind of joking about it was originally, you know, you looked at Project Spark itself. What we had before, what we have now is sort of this nice big, I don't know, hamburger or a steak or something, right? And now when we added multiplayer and everything else, it's sort of the bun and the condiments and everything else to make this really awesome burger that is so much greater than just the sum of its parts. And so we had kind of the real meat there, and you guys have dug in and looked at it. But I think now for everybody to really evaluate Project Spark, look at everything that's there. And look at Henry's hands going up. And
I see the animated hand.
Oh, and just so you know, Henry, like, and I just had to roll with these guys because they all saw it. We said fall, they said no. The release date is October. That's what they said. So I'm gonna just start saying like they dubbed it as October, so that's it. We don't say fall, we say October.
October was good times and bad times.
Well, I think it's less painful now that we're kind of so much closer. But yeah, it was.
My beard was starting to look like the guy in the trailer. I was getting pretty
remember watching that. I wasn't even a part of the team. And I'm just like, man, when's this thing gonna come out?
And Steve was like, wow, those poor jerks. Look at them.
There were a couple of nights where Mike and I were trying to brainstorm how November, December could sound good.
No, I think I was like, yeah.
December, that never worked. We were like, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, it was just sort of one of those tough things. But yeah, and I think like, look at where we could go from here, right? I think for the most part, I don't know, are there more surprises? Like, could we have anything like these are what I feel paradigm shifts, right? Mm-hmm. Is there more? Like, or could there be more?
Well, we told you it wouldn't be a surprise.
I think that's true. There are some more stuff to come.
So there could be some more things like that, but nothing in the near horizon.
Those things are there to further solidify the vision. They're there, frankly, if we can do some of the stuff we're talking about, is things that the community has been asking. It's stuff that along the lines of level linking that the community's been asking for and stuff like that. So I would say that vision-wise, Spark doesn't get sort of any wider necessarily. But from a standpoint of being able to provide more depth and more control over things and some polish, there's definitely some stuff to come still.
All right, no, that's good. And so, and you would say, right, we'd all agree that really this was all part of the all-important components for the ultimate quest of making the perfect U-shaped hill, right? That's why we needed all these things.
It was the quest for the U-shaped hill.
Right, because that is really what the ultimate goal was, just to make that great U-shaped hill.
Yeah, and we had a couple people asking in the feed. And I'm surprised Rob's on the hook for this one because he didn't do it. But we had a couple people asking, if you look at the latest Twitch stream live that Brad Rapet and Brad Schuber did today, you'll see an achievement unlock while they're playing.
Did they misspell his name?
So Rob worked on the achievements and didn't put in one for the U-shaped hill. They did. They spelled it R-E-P-H.
Really?
So he was Brad Rapet.
You know who gave him that info?
That's okay. I've been Henry Storecci. I was credited.
I'm checking my email now. I was
credited in Killer Instinct as I was missing my eye in Searchy or something like that. So it happens.
Nice.
Whoa!
That might be on me though. I'll double check.
Did you guys just make a multiplayer brawl fighter?
Yeah, we did.
What? Really? Just now?
Yeah, and I tried to cheat, and not tell him.
You didn't.
And I still lost. So
that's brutal.
Actually,
wait. No, I want to.
All those years of fighting game experience came in.
Rob's going in.
Oh no.
So this is where youth and exuberance beats old age and treachery. I like it. That's pretty good.
Let's see. Oh man.
Oh man.
The handicap is real.
Harris is dating himself with the Stretch Armstrong reference. I thought I dated myself with some. So.
Stretch Armstrong and Evil Knievel. I would play that.
Yeah, I would say this is no Power Stone, but it's got a lot of potential.
Dude,
It was.
It's
Power
not
Stone
killing
wasn't made in 3 minutes though.
That's true.
that's
no, it
pretty
wasn't.
funny. He just made a
No, it wasn't. With a budget of
fighting game in.
with a budget of I don't know how much bandit we just.
Wait, hold on, time out. I think we have to start paying these guys $15 an hour, right? Isn't that the rule? So it's probably went up.
Power Stone. That was a really fun game.
I love Power Stone.
I still have a Dreamcast specifically for Power Stone because I just
And
need
San
to play
Francisco Rush.
Oh yeah,
And the Soul Calibur.
Well, I worked at Namco at the time, so I kind of got my fill.
Dreamcast holds up, man. It does.
But Namco Museum,
Museum
those were my game. That was
good.
my first big seller. Was Namco Museum.
And then people stopped supporting it. And
Yeah, it was so sad. It was really sad. I still think that was the best console.
that was a great console.
I think it would hold up to today's console, not the Xbox One, but otherwise I think it would hold up. But because
the image quality, the IQ on that chip was incredible. Like, just the clarity of the games back then. Speed Devils was another amazing game by Ubisoft. I wish there'd be a sequel to that. What are some of the other things? Oh, man, Dreamcast was such a great system. But Rob and I used to play Phantasy Star Online in the same room together. Hilarious. He had like a 5-inch TV, though.
But I think
it was good times.
It was 20-inch.
But I think that's part of speaks to the overall sort of narrative here about like Team Dakota being a team that just loved all those old time classic games.
Some of us worked on them.
You know, and Henry's been around. You know, he's like 140,
That's
so
true.
he's actually worked on every single game. But to be able to,
I worked on the NES. I'll admit it.
To be able to try to at least do some sort of homage to those types of games, or maybe as the case with like Conker and possibly some other things, to be able to get some of that real assets in there so people can actually make that. And you think of all the games that are long gone, like can they come back? Like is everything dead alive again? I mean, and that's part of the promise of Project Spark and where we hope we can take it and go.
I mean, like Cave makes amazing shooters, right? But like they're one of the very, very few, and one of the first things we saw was a really good shooter, right? So even those old genres, right? Like the point and click adventures and stuff like that. Rob made an impromptu one on the stream. What was our character's name again?
It was Tomato Tom.
Tomato Tom.
I remember that. Wow.
That's right.
Dude, that feels like a decade ago. That was a long time ago, huh? Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things is like kind of the lost genres and the things that maybe commercially don't make sense anymore, right? Because budgets are high and so we say mobile, but you can't really make a lot of that stuff. But that's sort of where the space we're kind of ending up is being able to let people make those things, and we see how good creators can make it. So it's like you can resurrect almost any type of game style you ever want. And with low cost, get it out there for people to see.
Mike, Danner78's calling you out for not putting the videos up on YouTube anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. That
Mike's got the Homer Simpson syndrome. He can't hit the button some days.
Yeah. Oh.
I just died to my own enemies.
But hopefully, we're gonna have a solution in place to start getting those put up regularly.
You guys built a little arena too while I was reading comments.
Yep.
Oh, we started with that.
Yeah.
So are you co-op now?
Yeah, I died.
Okay.
I died.
Oh, way to go! So now he's gonna finish it solo.
So you went from a 2-player versus brawling to an arena with some co-op.
Yeah, co-op arena.
What you should do is put in the top-down bird's eye brain real quick.
So when is level linking coming, Henry? When is level linking coming to people that aren't Team Dakota? Because clearly you guys are special because you get to lock your stuff and you get to link your stuff.
Well, as you saw, level linking was a part of Champions Quest.
Okay.
And Champions Quest is available in fall, along with the other stuff we.
You mean October?
Potentially. That is part of fall, but not exactly. So it'll be around those lines.
Okay. Oh, so you're saying you're trying to hedge because if it ends up being between December 1st and December 21st, which is still technically fall, you're saying that wouldn't be October. Or are you hedging it could be earlier than that?
I don't know. I thought there was, 32 days in January? So
yeah, we do have a very unique calendar.
That's true.
But we did get a discount on them in bulk. So
that's true. For those, yes, 24.14. For you guys that don't know, we did those videos. I don't know if you saw them. And we had to do a couple of extra takes because Mike looked at me like it was the community managers calling out the creative director, and he said, this is going to be available fall. call 2414, right? And I said, 400-year buffer? Yeah, I think we got it. I can commit to 2414, no problem.
I just couldn't say the dates. I don't know what was going on.
Mike knows something we don't.
Yeah, it's...
Yes, you can make a game multiplayer and single player. I can't give you the best way. I know I've done a couple things with just switching a Boolean to say true when someone joins in, and it's worked for me. So Claude and Rob and Steve-O set up the join-in stuff for Champions Quest right now on the floor at E3. You can play that single player or two player, so you're able to hook in sort of the other players join-in buttons and stuff.
If you went to E3, you can see Claude. He's on the floor right now.
He is.
He's back.
Yeah.
But what you can see here...
And apparently he was in a limo.
Yeah, something like that.
So.
What you can see here is like you can drop these enemies into different modes, and they still function, and they still have their tells, and they still have like shields and all that good stuff. So you can play around that, or you can jump into their brains and adjust them a little bit and change them up to however you want.
All right.
So,
everything.
Anything else, you guys? We were talking. I mean, I want to ask you guys. We're now that we sort of got a big part of the stuff that we've had bottled up for a long time out. If you guys think it makes sense for us to maybe do like a Reddit AMA or something along those lines, like let me know and we can take a look and see if we can schedule something like that out and do that, because I feel like we're really kind of some of the big things that we said we always would say we can't talk about, we are now there.
Yeah, and I think not just sort of like from a pragmatic standpoint, but we are a team that likes to have surprises. We were one of the surprise unleaked and sort of unannounced games last year at the show, and then our surprise this year. So for us, it's not just about not talking about something until we're ready and not able to, we want to be able to show it. That's important to us. But we do also like that surprise too. But as Mike said, there's a ton of stuff to talk about. So if there's some other venues or some other ways we can communicate, I've been doing a bunch more blogs. Hopefully those have been helpful, entertaining, just a way to like break down my words, make a video and mock me back. I think that's been done. So we're definitely opening the doors with a lot more to talk about. And there's just a lot of great stuff to come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we will. Come on, Ari. Don't you think I pretty much answer everything? I do. I think at least I have an answer. Most of it's probably BS, you guys might say, and you might be right on some of it. But I think we can do that. And we're doing more. We're looking at ways that we can. A big part now is we got to start figuring out how to scale, right? And that's where we got the community advisory group out there to help. We're trying to figure out the right ways as we get beyond sort of we've got 1 million people that have jumped in and are playing and creating in Project Spark, but we're looking at going really, really bigger. And then how does that scale? How do we do that?
Yeah, a lot of people in Mesca was just asking about like save states relating to level linking, and that like we said, we didn't want to do level linking again without them. We do have some form that's starting to come together, but we still can't show that yet. It ended up being quite a bit more work than we expected, so. We will show that. We will have some form of save state is our goal. Right now you saw the level linking and you had to pick the champions again. So you can see there were still some last minute issues with it for E3 and we erred on the side of being safe. But we still feel like, what is happening there? The full power of level, I'm not even sure I can keep thinking. Is that a bird?
That is a bird. And a cottontail.
The full power of level linking only really manifests when we can do some of the save state stuff.
Yeah. So, hey guys, we're about 4:05, but I just want to. I know there were any questions. I know there were some questions about how you get into multiplayer, and I believe this is how I learned, guys. So I believe we're using the Xbox Live functionality. So it's sort of the invite, like basically the same thing you would do to invite somebody to a game, right?
Yep.
So you can invite your friends or anybody you recently played
against. Yep.
Okay. So see, I was right,
or
guys.
anyone following you or any of that type of stuff. Yep.
Okay. See, there you go. So. If you go to our forums, when people post, they have it's their gamer tag.
Yep.
So then you know that you can invite people to be friends and connect with them that way. And some people talked about, hey, other ways they love getting in with random folks and meeting things. And I think that's something we can look at down the road, right?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about always, like, everything is due to evolve for sure. So, even the multiplayer stuff we talked about today, there'll be some evolution of it and there'll be some improvements as time goes on and things like that. Some people mentioned... stuff like one player creating, one person playing, that stuff, that we're not doing immediately, but it's something that we'd be able to potentially evolve to sometime in the future, who knows. And invites and things like that are the immediate situation, but the future could be different.
In El Camino, I think that's essentially based on how that works with the.
Axfresh is asking if the invite lasts
That's El
forever or in
Camino.
that moment. So
Don't you know?
I don't.
See,
No,
Henry
is
does
that-
not. This is why you'll never make a good
That was a
manager.
name change.
You need to no. You need to know all 3 of his names that he has.
There's 3? Holy
Yes,
crap.
he has 3.
Wasn't he the wrestling one? So I'm not sure. It's going to be basically, the dashboard system. If you go up to the little globe in the top left corner, if you've missed an invite, you can get all your notifications back there. I don't know if it persists I don't know how long it persists up there, but if you're just wondering if you missed that little invite box, it does show back up in the little top left notification corner of the dashboard.
And so the other question is so 4 players, is that it? Will it never go higher? Do you guys not? Is it a philosophical reason to want to cap it at 4? Is it sort of more technical? Like what made you guys land on 4?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated question. There's definitely a lot of reasons for why we're at 4. Some of the big ones is obviously there's a lot of messaging, a lot of feedback we have to do while 4 people are playing and creating together. We have a system what we call booking. So if somebody's in a brain, they sort of booked that character, and we give feedback on that type of stuff. But really, the goal is to have the smoothest, most synchronous experience together where people can still manage the coordinates.
Okay, so technical limitations aside, from a design standpoint, and you're the creative director, if we could say all those are solved, would you want to add more than 4? Would the answer be yes, or do you think there's design considerations there?
Probably, but there's definitely design considerations.
Okay.
So it would be something that we'd have to make sure we do right and we support it properly, and would take quite a bit of effort and more time.
Okay. So you're not saying...
I do think logistically when you get to 8 or 6, it starts getting pretty crazy to coordinate.
Hectic,
I think a bigger thing for me is, can I make an 8-player multiplayer game?
Right.
So there could be a world where we go to 8-player play before we go to 8-player create. Like, those are all options we'd want to look at when we talk about how do we evolve.
That's the thing that I think about is I always want to, now if we have, say, team versus team.
Yeah, you want to make a game that you can nerf left axis.
Exactly, right? So, but team versus team, 2 versus 2 doesn't really work.
Yeah.
3 versus 3 could... It's
sure.
2 versus 2 is really whoever wins that
but
first
then
match
let's
wins.
flip that over and look at Titanfall, and Titanfall does a great job of blending in AI, too.
Right.
So 2 versus 2 with AI is actually, probably pretty viable.
So
But yes, at the end of the day, we want to evolve. We're looking at a lot of different options.
Okay.
But, right now, for sure, we feel 4-player is an incredibly magical experience.
And we're going to nail that down.
Definitely
and get it
digestible. We want to nail that. And, we've already seen some great things. Sax, as Mike mentioned on Twitter, as I'm building some land, he shoves a house in front of my screen and trolls me for a
Poor
couple
Henry,
minutes.
he keeps doing it, and Sax would just laugh.
I don't play multiplayer with Sax anymore, but there's definitely a bunch of
just have to push your buttons.
really magic moments, and some of the video from E3 and stuff like that you'll be able to see. But multiplayer is just like the rest of the game, something that who knows what it'll be like a couple of years from now.
Right? Yeah. No. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I think that we should wrap it up here. I think, if we're not all super sick from E3 and everything this weekend, we'll probably do another stream next Thursday at 3 p.m.
I'd love
again.
to drag Shub and Andy and show some Galaxy stuff.
Yeah. So and let us know what you want to see next. It's a little tough. We did it last time. It's always tough to show builds in progress. So we're going to try to maybe show what we can with the E3 versions of the builds to do that. And then for some of the newer stuff, it's a little tough. But we'll see what we can do with that. But, if you want to see Galaxies next, or at some point we could probably try to do something to show some multiplayer. I think we could figure that out. Just let us know what's important, because it does take time on our side, and we got to figure out how to get those YouTube videos uploaded so you guys can see them.
The trickiest thing we learned about showing multiplayer is 2 screens side by side, multi-screen side by side. It's incredible because you totally understand what's happening. One screen with somebody else somewhere is not the same thing. So
right, because it's sort of
it's hard to follow both of them.
It's hard to get the context.
Screen, so, yeah.
But Galaxies.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of Galaxies.
A lot of Galaxies next time. Yeah,
more enemies. You want to see more enemies, guys?
And there was one other quick question. Somebody said that they thought that the Codian was a sci-fi character, yet they heard it mentioned here. Could you want to speak a little bit to that?
No, that would be spoiling the story.
Okay. So somehow, so let's see. This is why I'm the community manager. So what you're saying, this is a mystery that they should start thinking about.
Yep.
How could what they said be true yet not be
And if you want to take a look at the video and look at some of the items that are in the fantasy world, are they entirely fantasy?
Oh, so now you start to. All right, I think on that note, guys.
See hints of other things.
Yeah. See, so there's there's a little story within the story within the story within the story. So there's lots of stuff there. We might be able to get some things out there. Maybe we could get maybe some sort of map of at least maybe some part. There's a lot of things we want to get out. Some of the champion info. We're going to see if we can get some of that blog content out there for you guys.
Yeah, and we'll definitely leave this. I'll leave them with the zinger because I did see it go by in chat.
Okay.
We are absolutely still very aware and looking into land sizes.
Oh, look at that. Does that mean
it could mean it could potentially fall in the other stuff to talk about later.
Fall?
Oh, I don't know.
I see what you did there.
Yeah? All right, on that note, before we get in too much trouble, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Follow us on ProjectSpark.com. And channeling my inner Bradley Reeb, I'm going to give a shout-out to Project-Spark.org, which he did on the Twitch stream. And believe me, that was not lost on these guys. Nice. They were like, oh, look, he called us out. So
and a shout-out to our whole crew at E3 that has done an amazing job.
They did a great job. They worked really hard.
And the whole team here putting the build together.
Yeah.
I can't be more thankful. The team is just incredible. And everybody is here just because of passion, and they just bleed Project Spark.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like, everybody worked really hard and really put their effort in, other than Henry and I, who really, we just kind of...
I just played Champions Quest over and over and told Rob that we needed new stuff.
Yeah, so, everybody else worked really hard, and you should thank them for putting their effort, because they really do care a lot. But, okay, guys, thanks again, and we will follow up on Twitter and Facebook, and we will see you hopefully next week.
Swarmhammer guard everything.
Thanks, guys.
See you.